and we Chet Daled. Rabbi Yeshua said, I have heard that the Cyrus performed Kalitza and the Kalitza is performed with his wife. And I have also heard that the Cyrus does not perform Kalitza and that Kalitza is not performed with his wife. And I cannot explain it. Akiva said, I will explain it. The person rendered a Cyrus by an act of a man performs Kalitza and Kalitza performed with his wife because he had a period of suitability. The congenital Cyrus does not perform Kalitza and Kalitza is not performed with his wife because he has no period of suitability. Reb Eliezer says not so. Rather, the congenital Cyrus performs Kalitza and Kalitza is performed with his wife since he may be cured. The person rendered by Cyrus by an act of man does not perform Kalitza and Kalitza is not performed with his wife since he cannot be cured. Rabbi Yeshua ben Seres testified about Ben Meguzas, who lived in Yerushalayim, who was a person rendered by Cyrus by an act of man, and Yevamos was performed with his wife, supporting Rabbi Akiva's statement. The Cyrus does not perform Kalitza or Yevamos. Similarly, Alonis does not perform Kalitza, nor may she be taken in Yevamos. The Cyrus who performed Kalitza with his Yevama did not prohibit her. If he can cohabitated with her, he prohibited her because it was illicit cohabitation. Similarly, with an Alonis, if the brothers performed Kalitza with her, they did not prohibit her. If they cohabitated with her, they prohibited her because cohabitation with her is illicit. A congenital Cyrus, who was a Kohen who married the daughter of a Yisrael, entitles her to eat Truma. Reb Yossi and Reb Shimon say an androgynous Kohen who married the daughter of a Yisrael entitles her to eat Truma. Rabbi Yehuda says a tumtum who was opened and found to be a male cannot perform Kalitza since he is considered a Cyrus. And the Adrazin may marry but may not be taken in marriage. Rabbi Eliezer says cohabitation with the Adrazin is punishable by stoning as with a male.
Right. Right, take this. Yesh mutaris lebaleihin v'asuris leyivmeihin. So the Mishna is going to give us a summary of all the cases where you have all the combinations of the people who are women who mutter to the husbands but asur to the Yavam, or mutter to the Yavam and asur to the Baal, asur to both or mutter to both. Okay, so that's what our Mishnah is going to be talking about. Okay, elo mutaris lebaleihin v'asuris leyivmeihin. So where do you have a case where she's permitted to her husband but asur to the Yavam? Kohen Hedjot Shenaseh Almana. If you have a regular Kohen who married a widow, Yesh lo ach Kohen Gadol, and now he's got a brother who's a Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol, of course, cannot marry a widow. I mean, he didn't even have to. You didn't even have to come onto that honestly, that because the fact is that by her nature the Yevama is a widow. So you don't really need to say that it's that he's a regular Kohen. But the point being, why do we say that he married a widow? Just to emphasize the point that a regular Kohen is allowed to marry a widow. But he was married to a widow, so he's allowed to be with her. But now his Kohen Gadol brother is asur to marry her. Chalal shenasa kashera. Now what happens if you have a Chalal who's married to a regular Yisraelis? A Chalal is the child of a Kohen from a divorcee or from a convert. Right? So he.
I'm sorry. From what? From whom?
A divorcee or from a convert.
Convert. Okay.
Or an Ibn Shifka Meshafreris. Okay. So now the Chalal is worse than Israel. Why? Because if a Chalal has relations with a woman, even the Heter, then the woman from having relations with the Chalal becomes Pasul Kahuna. Okay, so even if he's married to her, then the Chalal make and the Chalal subsequently dies. So this Chalal now, he married a kosher woman, yesh lo ach kosher, and he's got a brother who's a kosher Kohen. Okay, so this kosher Kohen is not allowed to marry the widow because she was married once to a Halal.
Is that Kohen who married her? Is he allowed to duchen, or he's just considered?
So a Kohen can never actually permanently mess up his own status as a Kohen. What they do is they sanction him. So if you have a Kohen who's married to a divorcee or somebody else who's not allowed to be married to, then they don't allow him. They have a whole bunch of sanctions against him. They won't give him the first aliyah. They won't let him duchen. They won't. That's even nowadays. They have these sanctions against the Kohen who's married to Isser. But as soon as he divorces her, comes straight back to the Kohuna. He never loses his Kohuna. But his children through that marriage become chalalim, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Right. So they're not called. Well, the children they're kohanim, but they lose. They're not kohanim at all.
No,
They just
they're not at all.
They don't even get that. Wow.
The child of a Kohen and a divorcee is a halal. He's a Yisrael legamrei. He's allowed to marry a divorcee. He's allowed to go into a cemetery. He has no dinim of kahuna at all.
Wow.
The complicated case is if a Kohen marries a chalutza. Because min Torah, he's allowed to marry a chalutza, which means that min Torah, the child is a Kohen. So if you have a child of a Kohen and a chalutza, then he loses all the privileges of the kahuna, but he doesn't lose all the chiyuvim. So he's got to find a wife who is kosher kahuna, and now he's got to start preserving a masorah among all of his children. That listen, we are kohanim d'oraisa, but we're not kohanim d'rabbanan. So now they've got to all remember about being careful about tumah and only marrying somebody who's kosher kahuna, but they don't get all of the rights of the kahuna because there's a chalutza in their lineage.
Wow.
So that's the most complicated case. Okay, so back to the situation of the relationships with the mutter to the husband, but also to the yavam. Yisrael shenasa bas Yisrael. So you've got a regular marriage between Yisrael and another and bas Yisrael. Yesh lo ach mamzer, but the Yisrael has got a brother who's a mamzer. Or mamzer shenasa mamzeres, or you've got a mamzer who married a mamzeres. That's mutar. Yesh lo ach Yisrael, but the mamzer's got a brother who's Yisrael. He's not allowed to marry a mamzeres. Mutaris lebalehen, asuris liyivmehen. That all of these cases are mutar to their husbands, but asa to the yavam. Okay.
Even though it's not a direct, it's a brother.
It's a brother.
Brother who's a mamzer.
Remember, if they've got as long as it's a brother through the father. So you could have a situation where the one son is legitimate and the other son came from an erva,
Right.
with another woman. So they're still brothers. And in terms of Yerusha, the mamzer inherits just like the rest of his brothers.
He gets double?
No, it doesn't get double. But if he's a bechor, I'm not sure if a bechor mamzer gets a double portion, but I don't have any reason to believe not to. No, that he doesn't. I don't remember. We may see that in Maseches Bechoros. Okay. Now the converse case. Elu mutaris liyivmehen v'asuris lebalehen. He has a case where the women were asked to be married to their husbands, but if the husband dies, they're mutar to the yavam. How so? Kohen gadol shekideshes ha'almana. If a Kohen gadol did kiddushin with an almana, not if he lived with her. If he did nisuhin, then she's had relations with somebody who is pasul, and then passes her from the kohuna. But it's got to be kiddushis almana. So all he did was kiddushin. They never lived together, and then the Kohen gadol dies. Yesh ach Kohen hediot, and he's got a regular Kohen brother. So that brother can do yibum with the widow. Kasher shenasa chalala. If you had a regular Kohen who married a chalala, a woman who's the child of a Kohen and a divorcee, let's say. Okay, so he's not allowed to marry a chalala, but he did marry the chalala, and they're living be'isur. V'yesh lo'ach chalal, but this Kohen has got another brother who is a chalal, and the chalal is allowed to marry the chalala, so he's allowed to do yibum. Yisrael shenasa mamzeres. If you have a Yisrael who married the mamzeres, v'yesh lo'ach mamzer, and he's got a brother who's a mamzer, the mamzer is allowed to do yibum with the mamzeres. Mamzer shenasa bas Yisrael, or conversely, a mamzer who married a bas Yisrael, v'yesh lo'ach Yisrael, and he's got a brother who's not a mamzer. Mutaris livneihin v'asuris lebalehim. So they are permitted to the yavam, even though they were asur to the husband. Okay, interesting cases there. Asurs le'elu v'le'elu. There are those who are prohibited to both the husband and to the other. Okay, these should be pretty simple. Kohen gadol shenases almana. If you have a kohen gadol who married an almana, okay, and therefore he puzzled her from the kohen of Yeshlach kohen gadol or kohen hediot. And it doesn't matter whether his brother who survives him is immediately appointed to be kohen gadol or if he's just a regular kohen hediot. It doesn't matter because the woman who has lived with the kohen gadol be'isur becomes asur to other kohanim. Or kasher shenasa halala v'yeshlach kasher. The brother's got the same status as the dead husband. Yisrael shenasa mamzeres v'yeshlach Yisrael. So Yisrael who's married to a mamzeres and he's got a brother who's a Yisrael. Or mamzer shenasa bas Yisrael v'yeshlach mamzer. Two mamzer brothers who and the wife is a kasher Yisraelis. Okay, asuros le'elu v'le'elu. They're pretty self-evident that if both brothers have got the same status, they're asked to do Yevamos as well. Okay, the ushar kol hanashim mutaris lebalei and believe mayhem, and all the other and your standard stam cases where they're mutar to the husband, mutar to the yavam. This is not an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other cases where that you could come up with where they're asked to both or mutar to both. Okay, but so don't take this last sentence too literally. That everything else is mutar to the husband and to the other. The other cases, but just be faithful. Right. Shnios midivrei sofrim. So now the shnios is a remember that's an addition midrabbanan. We said that the minat Torah a man is asur to his mother and to his daughter. Right. The rabbanan added on to his grandmother and his granddaughter. And to his son's daughter-in-law, and or to his daughter's daughter-in-law, and also to his great-granddaughter. Right, so there are a number of relationships that were not explicitly prohibited by the Torah, but Chazal said we're adding them in. Okay.
Is the punishment's the same then?
No, it's not at all the same. If they actually did.
Oh, I meant the punishment. The secondary punishments it's different than the Torah arias, right? But yes, the secondary
because Torah arias a person can be executed for.
Right.
Okay. Right. The shnios midivrei sofrim, you can get makas mardos. That's it. You can't get more than that. And what we'll see is that Chazal said, you know something, people will treat the Torah arayos much more severely, and they kind of mezalzel on the Rabbanan. So we're going to make an extra stringency on these shnios. So we're going to see.
So it's 40. It's 40 makas. Is that what it is? 40 lashes that they get, or is it more? Or
no, the makas. No, so makas mardos. Those are rabbinically prescribed. Lashes have no limit.
No limit. Wow.
There's no limit on makas mardos. They can just keep lashing a person as much as they want, because it's not a Torah prescribed thing. So the Chazal had in their own authority to treat them as they saw fit, instead of using them.
We had in Makos where they get to one point where he's gonna pass out or he's gonna die or something like that. They stop. Right.
That's right. So if he soils himself or something and his dignity, right. Okay. So I don't know Lamase. When we learn Makos, we didn't see what Makas Mardos is actually comes to in the Mishna. But Chazal had the dispensation to basically do whatever they wanted. It was possible that they could give more than 40 lashes. Makas Mardos. Okay, so back to our Mishnah. Shnios midivrei sofrim. So the secondary relationships. Shnia lebal v'lo shnia leyavam. If she is a secondary to the husband and not to the yavam, asura lebal muteres leyavam. Then she's asur to the husband and mutar to the yavam. Okay. Shnia leyavam v'lo shnia lebal. If she is a shnia to the husband and not to the yavam and not to the husband, asura leyavam muteres lebal. Shnia lezeh v'lezeh, asura lezeh v'lezeh. Obviously, if she's a shnia to both of them, then she's asur to both of them. Now this is the interesting part, is that if a woman it gets married to somebody who's asur as a shnia. Now you think this is less severe, but it's much more severe. Ain la kesuba, she loses her kesuba completely. I'm not sure why Chazal decided that the woman was more to blame for being over on shnias. But they put this, maybe this is a psychology over here that they said that that the woman is not going to consent to this marriage if she knows the financial penalties that are going to be on her. Okay, so she loses a kesuba, lo peiros. So the pay, she doesn't get any peiros from the kesuba. She doesn't lo mazonos, and the husband is not obligated to give her upkeep money. Lo belaus, she doesn't get money for whatever he wore out while he was in possession of her goods. But vlad kasher. However, a child from a shnia is not considered a mamzer. Okay, because it's not a doraisa, so therefore the vlad doesn't have to pay for it. Okay, the kofin or solo hotzi, and they force him to divorce her. Okay, almana lekohen gadol. However, if you have one of these cases of the regular isurei Torah, and almana to kohen gadol, grusha lechalutz lekohen hediot, mamzer senasim in Israel, bas Israel the nasan mamzer, all these regular things that are asam in HaTorah. Yesh lahem kesuba. In all these cases, even though it was an illegal marriage, once they force him to divorce her, but he still has to pay out the kesuba because people are not as mazalzel when it's an Issa Torah. So they didn't feel the need to put this extra knas on so they were more strict on an Issa D'Rabbanan than they were on Issa D'Oraisa.
It's interesting because in the we had where, if I forget which sex it was in, but we had where a woman is out in the field and she's raped by this man, or she has relations with him, and she didn't want to have relations with him, but she was forced. So there were different rules as far as punishment, who gets what, and so forth. It was in the city; it was a different kind of punishment. But here they're saying that she lose her too, but maybe she didn't want to have relations with him. Maybe she was forced. Now, how did they have to go to bed?
No, if she's forced is like raped.
Right. Okay.
But rape, there's no kesuba involved. The marriage,
right. But if she's married and she's raped by this person, so she has to. Is there a way that they have to prove whether she consented?
No. This is not a case. If she was married, the isser to her grandson or to her grandfather.
Right.
Okay, that's a shnia.
Right.
Okay. She will bear the penalty of not having a kesuba, etc. All of the other penalties that she has. This is because she consented to be married to somebody who was asur to her. If he rapes her, that's a different parasha. That's not talking about kesuba. Now we're talking about a ma'anes, where he's going to have to pay a penalty. He's going to have to pay 50 shekels or whatever. The regular class. But it's not you don't have to look for her consent and anything. If she got married, that by definition is consensual.
I was just saying that she was in a situation where, let's say, the grandfather raped her. She was married, it was legitimate, and she was raped by him.
So that's a totally different case. She's married to somebody she's allowed to be married to. Okay, and she was raped, and then you have a totally different case. That's not our case over here.
Right. Okay.
We're talking about a case where they actually did a kiddushin, lived together, whatever, right. and then Chazal came around with the guy to the baseball bat and said divorce her, and so finally divorced her, and now she says I want my kesuba, and they say you don't get a kesuba.
I just saw something on the news yesterday, or the day before, something about the London court or something, was punishing this guy, as I think something like that. He was forcing him to give a divorce, to give a get to his wife. So the London court, that based in.
But that's legitimate if a based in said you're now the heter to go to their cars to the regular courts to force the divorce out of him. But it's got to be al pi halacha. It's got to be that the based in has paskin, you must give a divorce, and he still refuses. Then they're allowed to use the secular authorities as enforcers. Right. It's not that they're saying that they're sort of acknowledging the authority of the secular courts. They're using them as a collection agency.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, we have Hey Aleph,
Yes.
right? Rabbi Gamil says there is no validity to a bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, nor to mama or after mama, nor to cohabitation after cohabitation, nor to kalitza after kalitza. The sages, however, say there is validity to a bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, and to mama after mama, and after cohabitation after kalitza, there is nothing, because kalitza ends everything. How so? He performed mamar with his Yevama and then gave her a bill of divorce. She requires kalitza from him. If he performed mama with her and then kalitza, she requires a bill of divorce from him. If he performed mama and then cohabitated with her, he has done it properly. If he gave a bill of divorce and then mamar, she requires a bill of divorce and kalitza. If he gave her a bill of divorce and then cohabitated with her, she requires a bill of divorce and kalitza. If he gave her a bill of divorce and then kalitza, there is nothing after kalitza. If he performed kalitza with her and then performed mama with her, or gave her a bill of divorce and cohabitated with her, or if he cohabitated with her and then performed mama and gave her a bill of divorce or performed kalitza with her, there is nothing after kalitza. It is the same whether it is one Yevama with one Yavam or two Yevamas with one Yavam.
Okay.
Okay. One who reads the Torah may not read fewer than 3 verses. He may not read more than 1 verse at a time for the translator, and in the section from the prophets, he may not read more than 3 verses at a time.
Hold on.
Did I make a mistake?
In Dalet Hay.
Dalet Hay. You're right. I was right. I was doing Dalet. I'm sorry. The one who concludes with his section from the prophets is the one who divides the Shema and goes before the ark and lifts his hands to bless the people. If he is a minor, his father or teacher go before the ark on his behalf. A minor may read the Torah or serve as a translator. However, he may not divide the Shema, nor may he go before the ark, nor may he lift his hands to bless the people. One whose clothes are tattered may divide the Shema and serve as translator. However, he may not read the Torah, nor may he go before the ark, nor may he lift his hands. Also, a blind man may divide the Shema and serve as translator. Rabbi Yehuda says anyone who has never seen the luminaries may not divide the Shema. Okay. Right, one more. A Kohen whose hands are blemished may not lift his hands. Rabbi Yehuda says even one whose hands are stained with woad or matter may not lift his hands because the people will stare at him. Okay. It said here about a minor not being able to go, to Dukin. But I've seen in many places where a minor goes with his father.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe it's the year before bar mitzvah or whatever.
Yeah, when they reach chinuch. Now that's interesting. Let's just see what does it say. The French. What do we see? Was that in the Mishna now that we said that
it was in sevens of Zion at the end.
French. Oh
no, that's not it. That's not it. It was involved at the end. One was close.
I don't know. Says kapab. Right? He doesn't do it in Kohen. Right? It's considered. It's considered a It's only if he's alone. It's only if he's alone that it's not.
Can't go up by himself, right?
But if he's going up with adult kohanim, then like what is the tzibur care?
Right. I unfortunately heard of one case here in Beit Shemesh where a young man went up, his father was there and all that, and the Rav wouldn't let him go. He says, he's not bar mitzvah yet. He can't. He got one.
There are different shittas in this. I know some kohanim they treat duchening like tefillin. So a month before bar mitzvah they start bringing him up to duchen, and some kohanim say as soon as he reaches chinuch, let him come up and learn how to duchen.
Right.
As long as he's coming up with other adult kohanim.
Oh, right. So it's covered.
That's everyone according to his minhag. I don't get involved with that. I think it's quite. I think it's really cute when the little kohanim go.
Yes, yeah. It's a good thing for the child, and for the parent and for the whole community to see, we're teaching this young Kohen what to do. He was very upset. The child was very upset. It was terrible. He was really crying, and and he wasn't a young kid. He was just, he was like a little kid. Anyway, all right, we are in Scullum. 13 tables were in the temple. 8 of marble were in the slaughter area, upon which they would rinse the entrails. 2 were to the west of the altar's ramp, 1 of marble, 1 of silver. Upon the marble one, they would put the limbs of the offerings, upon the silver, the utensils for the service. 2 were inside the antechamber near the temple doorway, 1 of marble and 1 of gold. Upon the marble one, they would put the pot of bread when it was brought in, and upon the golden one, when it was taken out. For regarding the sanctified objects, we ascend but do not descend. And 1 of gold on the inside of the temple, upon which the pot of bread lay continually. 13 collection chests were in the temple, upon which were inscribed respectively new Scullum and old Scullum, nest and young pigeon burnt offerings, wood and frankincense, gold for the utensils, and the remaining 6 were used for various donative offerings. New Scullum was for the Scullum of each year, and old Scullum was for the one who did not pay his half shekel last year and pays it this year. Nest refers to turtle doves, and young pigeon burnt offerings refers to young pigeons, and all are burnt offerings. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. But the other sages say nests were used for one required to bring 2 birds, 1 a sin offering and 1 a burnt offering. But young pigeon burnt offerings was for burnt offerings only. One who says, I oblige myself to offer wood, I obligate myself to offer wood, may not bring less than 2 blocks. If he says frankincense, he may not bring less than a fistful. If he says gold, he may not bring less than a gold dinner. What was done with the funds in the 6 chests designated for donative offerings? They would buy burnt offerings, the meat for God, and the hides for the Kohanim. This exposition was expounded by Yehoiada, the Kohen Gadol. Yehoiada. It is a guilt offering for he is guilty, a guilt offering for Hashem. This is the general rule. Whatever comes before cause of a sin or because of guilt shall be used to purchase burnt offerings, the meat for God and the hides of the Kohanim. Thus, the 2 verses are reconciled. It is a guilt offering for Hashem and a guilt offering for the Kohanim. And it also says that the guilt offerings money and the sin offerings money shall not be brought to the temple of Hashem. They shall be for the Kohanim. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. A woman may lend her neighbor who is suspect in regard to the 7th year a sifter, a sieve, a handmill, or an oven, but she may not sift or grind with her. The wife of a chaver may lend to his wife of an amaret a sifter or a sieve, and she may sift, grind, or refine with her. But once she has poured water, she may not touch with her, for one may not add transgressors. But all of those things were said solely for the sake of peace, and one may encourage non-Jews in the 7th year, but not Jews, and one may greet them for the sake of peace. These are the 3 territories in regard to the 7th year. All that which the ascendants from Babel occupied of Eretz Yisrael, as far as Kiziv, may not be eaten or cultivated, and all that the ascendants from Egypt occupied, from Kiev to as far as the river and until Amana, it may be eaten but not cultivated. But the river and Amana inward, it may be eaten and cultivated. In Syria, one may attend to the detached but not to the attached. One may thresh, winnow, tread, and bind but not harvest. And one neither nor gather grapes nor pick olives. And when Rebbe Kiva laid down the general rule, the like of whatsoever is permitted in Eretz Yisrael may be done in Syria. Okay. We have Caleb. Tess. Utensils of Kodesh do not have an exterior and an interior, and they do not have a tseva place. Nor may we not, and we may not immerse utensils within other utensils for Kodesh. All utensils sent to Tumah through thought, but they not emerge from the Tumah except through a physical change. For an action that negates an action, or a thought, but a thought negates neither an action nor a thought. Regarding an imkin sandal, is that right? Imkin sandal and a drawstring purse. Why Reb Huda says also a palm strip basket. Reb Shimon ben Gamil says also a lutkin sandal has the same law. These are the rendered tame and a rendered taho without the craftsman. And Roshi said, but not all utensils rendered tame and rendered taho without a craftsman. Rather, these utensils, even if they are undone, are tame, for a layman is able to repair them. They only stated the other law in regard to a palm strip basket, or even a craftsman is not able, for even a craftsman is not able to repair it. A drawstring purse whose drawstrings were removed is tame. If it was flattened out, it is tahor. If one attacks a patch or its underside, it is tame. Regarding a purse within a purse, one of which has become tame through contact with tame liquid, the other does not become tame. And the wrap of a diamond is tame. And as for the wrap of coins, Reb Eliezer says it is tame, but the sages rule it tahor. Okay, what is a vain oath? One who swears to contradict what is known to man. For example, he said, concerning a pillar of stone that is of gold, concerning a man that he is a woman, or concerning a woman that he is a man.
Oh, that's very relevant, isn't it?
Yeah. One who swears concerning something that is impossible. For example, if I did not see a camel flying through, if I did see a camel flying through the air, or if I did not see a snake like the beam of an olive press, or one who said to witnesses, come and testify for me, and they replied, we swear that we will not testify for you. One who swears to make annul a mitzvah, for example, not to make a sukkah, not to make a lulav, and not to put on tefillin. These are vain oaths for which one is liable to a penalty of lashes for the willful transgression, and for whose inadvertent transgression one is exempt. I swear I will eat this loaf. I swear that I will not eat it. The first is an oath of utterance, and the second is a vain oath. If he eats it, he transgresses only the prohibition against a vain oath. If he does not eat it, he transgresses an oath of utterance as well. The oath of utterance applies to both men and women, non-relatives and relatives, qualified persons and disqualified persons, both in court and out of court, but only by his own mouth. One is liable for a willful transgression to a penalty of lashes, and for its inadvertent transgression to a viable sin offering. Okay. We had some interesting company over at Shabbos. My granddaughter bought a roommate, a very, very, very nice girl, very, very nice, sweet, from